Hey, it's Ryan coming to you from our home in the middle of the woods as per usual, but now I can say it's because we're on coronavirus lockdown. If you have ever wondered if and how homeopathy can help with cancer, the answer is yes, it can, and stick around to find out how. When our son Ryder was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer 11 days before his first birthday, my wife Teddy and I knew we weren't going to leave anything that could get him well on the table. We've worked with countless doctors and health experts, moved away from our family and friends, raised and spent tens of thousands of dollars, even built a non-toxic house in the middle of the woods, all in the name of healing. Today, Ryder is happy and healthy, and we live more fulfilling lives than before the diagnosis. This is a revolution against what causes cancer and disease, and against what people think about how to reverse it. Whether you're actively healing and want to know all your options, keeping it behind you, or making sure cancer never touches your family, this is your revolution. This is the anti-cancer revolution. From integrative to alternative to energetic, we walk down all paths of wellness, free of bias. My name is Ryan Sternagel. Enjoy the journey. Before I launch into talking about today's interview, if you are listening to this at the time this episode is released and struggling to make sense of what to do amidst the panic this virus has caused, I'm going to repeat the same thing I've been saying on our email list and social media. Stress is the worst thing you can do for your immune system. It's true in cancer, and it happens to be true in viruses as well. And of course, there's a lot of connection between viruses and cancer, so there's that for you. In all seriousness though, if you're listening to this show, you're probably already taking a lot of vitamin C and D and have assorted immune boosting products on your shelves. Just take more of all of them. Check out the article we have on our site, thesternmethod.com, for a bigger picture view if you feel like you need it. And use this time to rest and recharge. And that said, I won't spend too much time building up today's interview. I expected our guest, Dr. Carol Lourie, to talk about homeopathy and cancer, and it turned out to be that and a whole lot more. A healing broth and blended salad recipes I'd never heard about before, intermittent fasting, a lot of stuff on reduction of conventional treatment side effects. Turned out to be a very well-rounded interview on an integrative approach to cancer I really think you're going to enjoy. I'll let you get to it and see you back here on the other side. Dr. Carol Lourie, thank you so much for coming on the Anti-Cancer Revolution. How are you today?
I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for having me, and I can't wait to talk with you and your audience.
We finally did it.
Third time's a charm.
Yeah, this interview, for whatever reason, we couldn't get the scheduling right on it, but we're both here in the same place at the same time and ready to rock.
Yes, we are.
We've had a few conversations in different health events that we've seen each other at and that sort of thing, and definitely both on the train of helping people with cancer. And you're doing it from an integrative approach, for sure. Definitely helping people, that may be going through conventional treatment, may or may not, but
yes,
a lot of people shy away from people. Well, you get people on both ends. You get people on the natural side that shy away from helping people that are going through the conventional side, and then you get people on the conventional side that don't want anything to do with the natural side. So I love that you take all comers. That's that's for sure. Do you, on that note, I know that you've been helping people with cancer for a long time now, but I don't know why. Is there a reason you've honed in on cancer in your medical profession?
Sure. It's a great question. Well, I lost my father's mother, my grandmother, to cancer when I was very young. And I lost my father to cancer when I was older, to lymphomas. And several after I graduated from Homeopathic medical school, my dear friends who I went to school with was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I don't think you realize the enormity of what that means until you've gone through it, either yourself or with a friend, as I did. So 18 months, every surgery, radiation, chemotherapy infusion, doctor's appointment, which at UCSF in San Francisco was a 6-hour affair, and then taking care of her afterwards, after her IVs and how sick she was. So I got an up close and personal experience of what was working within the standard oncology approach and what was really lacking. And that really opened my eyes to me using the skills that I had as a naturopath to how I could help women through their breast cancer experience. And then I began to study in earnest about breast cancer because my naturopathic training really didn't prepare me for the complexities of all the driving metabolic forces of what is cancer and what creates cancer, and the emotional component and the biochemistry and the toxic home environment and toxins in our environment. So it is an enormous topic, which is very complex. And so I studied with one of the, what I feel is one of the countries in the world's premier integrative oncology experts, although he's not an oncologist, he's an herbalist, Donnie Yance of the Mederi Foundation in Ashland, Oregon. He knows everything about medical oncology and about herbal botanical medicine and integrative approach. And he has these advanced classes, which I attended over several years. So that provided me the foundation of my approach for how to approach cancer. And I decided to really specialize in breast cancer because I think women need a lot of support, and I'm very interested in, I had been working primarily with women in my clinical practice for all different kinds of complex illness, which I still do, but I have a large amount of women in my practice who have breast cancer.
Well, very good. People think that they're doing everything they can by just working with any old naturopathic doctor. And a lot of naturopathic doctors, even if they don't specialize in cancer, whether they be a board certified naturopathic oncologist or a naturopathic doctor who has clearly chosen to specialize in cancer and learn all they can, a lot of those folks will still take someone going through cancer and try to help them the best they can. But I always tell people you really need to find someone that actually specializes in cancer and that resonates with you and all that good stuff.
Well, naturopathic oncologists do specialize in cancer. I mean, they've gone through a residency and learned about oncology. So I think anyone who has those initials after their name is very well trained. But a generalized naturopathic doctor, in my opinion, unless they have specifically done additional studies, I don't think that the naturopathic college trains people enough that you need additional postgraduate training to really know just a little bit. I mean, I'm studying all the time. I just came back from 2 weekends of advanced integrative oncology conferences. So there's a lot that we all need to keep up with.
What were those conferences?
Well, I went to New York City and I actually presented on intermittent fasting in the clinical practice at the Society for Integrative Oncology. And then the weekend after, I was in Seattle with the Advanced Applications in Medical Practice put on by Paul Anderson.
I wanted real close with Dr. Paul Anderson, as many people know. He was my son's first, first and still kind of main naturopathic oncologist. But what's that?
He mentioned.
Oh.
I went up to him, I was talking to him, I said, don't you know Ryan? He goes, oh yes. And he mentioned that he was your doctor in one of his, he presented 13 times over a period of 3 days. He gave 13 individual lectures. The man is amazing. And it was a wonderful conference. There were several colleagues that we know from Mindshare and colleagues of mine from the Donnie Yance Roundtable Group, and there were 300 people there from all over the US, and some had come from Europe. It was really amazing.
That's really cool. I wanted very badly to go to that, but that was my wife and I's 10-year anniversary weekend. And although we're really into natural health, I don't know that would have been the most romantic 10-year
No, that wouldn't have
anniversary.
been romantic. But you know, Nasha Winters was there. We all sat together. It was really wonderful. So it was very inspiring. And there was a doctor there from Germany who has this very interesting, Dr. Weber. He has a huge clinic in Germany using laser therapy for cancer. And I think that that was phenomenal. He presented a case where a woman had breast cancer and he used only laser in the breast and the tumor disappeared. So I thought that was fascinating. And he also flies to Thailand or Bangkok or Singapore. He has clinics all over the world where he is using his laser therapy.
Huh. Does he have clinics here in the US?
No.
Oh, yeah, of course. And
Right.
so that's more or less a laser just shining onto someone from outside of the skin,
No,
going through the
he
skin.
penetrates.
Oh, he does.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So he opens the person up, shines the laser on.
No, he has his very thin needles, which he doesn't open them up. For the breast, for the breast, he had these very thin needles that he put around the tumor. And then I think that different color lasers go in a different amount, but he will put needles with the laser into the abdomen, but not like surgically, just as you would with an acupuncture needle, for example. It was amazing what he does. I think that, and then there were representatives from the clinic in Mexico. So it had a lot of what you would term in America for American out of the box oncology treatments, which I think really are in the box for the people that I work with. And that's part of what we're both trying to get out there, that there is more of in the box than out of the box. We want it to be all inclusive. And that's what you use for your son.
Well, when you're talking about cancer, it's why wouldn't you put everything you possibly could that has shown decent promise and results working? Why wouldn't you put that in the box, in your box?
Right.
That's interesting. I'll have to. How do you spell Weber? Weber. What's his
Yes.
first name?
I don't know, but
I'll
forward,
just search.
I'll forward you the information. I have it all.
Yeah, I can check out the conference agenda too. But yeah,
Yeah.
we'll put that in the notes for anybody that's
Great.
interested in checking out the laser therapy for sure. We just finally got it's a light therapy device, but it's low intensity, so kind of the opposite of laser.
Yeah.
But more for general rejuvenation of the body, increased healing capacity, defense systems, all that stuff. But it's fascinating stuff. So that being said, you're a naturopathic doctor who focuses on cancer, but then you also have a homeopathy specialty.
I do. I've been studying homeopathy since I was in the 80s at naturopathic school. And for those of you who don't quite understand what homeopathy is, because it's still a little bit on the fringe, homeopathy is a system of healthcare that is separate from being a naturopath or a medical doctor. You can be any type of person who has learned and studied homeopathic medicine. There are many doctors, naturopaths, medical doctors, osteopaths, dentists, even veterinarians who do homeopathy, but you can be any type of practitioner or just a layperson who has really done this advanced study. And it was discovered in Germany in the late 1800s by this doctor called Hahnemann. And in those times, people were getting very ill with very certain types of diseases. And he began to experiment with chemicals like sulfur and phosphorus. And he was a very advanced scientist in that he could record every little minute detail of what a person exhibited when he would give them a remedy. And he made these remedies by taking the actual product, the sulfur, the phosphorus, whatever, and he diluted it in a certain percentage of alcohol, succussing it or pushing it up and down 100 times each. And then he would take a drop from that vial and put it in the next vial. And he wrote all this down, and this makes up the homeopathic pharmacopoeia. And by the time he finished with his dilutions, there was no live molecular or biological product. There was just the energy. So this is why homeopathy is so safe for women and infants and babies in pregnancy. And if you're going through cancer treatment, there's no potential for it to. One of the main concerns for standard oncologists is you have to stop everything because they're not educated in and does not interfere with their. But when you're doing homeopathic remedies or medicine, because there's no biological component of it, it's not going to interfere with any part of your standard oncology treatment.
In general, I like to think doctors, they freak out about any herb or vitamin or anything. And in general, it's like, okay, show me how many really bad negative interactions have actually happened, especially when you're working with somebody like a naturopathic oncologist who can walk you through the cases where, yeah, you wouldn't want to take this in combination with that sort of thing. But then you look at how many properly prescribed drug interaction deaths are there per every year, and it's like, okay, which one's worse? But that being said, that's something I've never thought about before, is that you can take something like that to your doctor if you're taking everything you're doing to your doctor and say, well, there's not actually anything in this, so you should be okay with it. It's just the energy of it, right? The essence.
And I tend to, in my clinical practice, I am not I'm into having a positive relationship with the local oncologists, and most of them have gotten to know me, so they really will have an interactive conversation. And what I do with the women I work with is they're on very extensive protocols throughout their treatment and then in their recovery. But in order to respect the chemotherapy, what I say to them is 2 days before you're having an infusion, you stop your supplements, and then you do intermittent fasting, and then you have your infusion, and then for 2 days after, for a day after, you continue with intermittent fasting, and then for 2 days after, you do not use your supplements. You just do bone broth and Bieler's broth. So when I have that approach with the oncologist, and I understand what the half-life is of the chemotherapy drugs, nobody has any problems with that. And it's very easy to have that approach for women. So you don't want to have negative energy with your doctors and the person you're working with. It's stressful enough. You need to keep everything on a positive playing field, I think.
Most certainly, yeah. And for adults, it's especially if you're not getting along with your oncologist, why would you keep that?
You can find a different oncologist for adults. Now, when you have a child with cancer, as you know, it's a very different experience. And I have had patients who their oncologist was going to report them to CPS if they didn't. So that's a whole different conversation. And I think that's really alarming, actually, so we're not going to get into that conversation.
Yeah, no, and that's just, all I'm saying is we had to up and move states when something was going wrong with our oncology team. But
right, which I think you did the right thing.
Yeah.
You absolutely did the right thing. And I've had conversations with patients with children along those lines, move.
Did you mention something? Did you say Bieler's broth?
Yes, Bieler's broth. Let me tell you about Bieler's broth. Bieler's broth is one of I have a big background, back up a little bit, how I was introduced to the world of natural healthcare is a really interesting story. I was going to go to medical school, and because I didn't know about anything else, and I ended up moving to New York, and I was part of this spiritual meditation community, and my roommate had cancer. And I went with her to Columbia Medical School and was with her when her oncologist said to her, she had an enormous amount of radiation to her chest. And this was in 1976 or 77, so it was a long time ago. And he said, we've done all we can do for you. There's nothing more, like, goodbye, you're going to die. And she said, and I said to her, I don't think that has to be your reality. So we started researching, and we found this chiropractor who did iridology detoxifying diets. And you have to understand that now we think of that and we go, oh yeah, sure. But in 1977, nobody knew what iridology was, and nobody knew what detoxifying diets were. So iridology is when you look at the eye, and there's a whole chart. And when you have like black spots in certain areas, that's an indication of where you have toxins. And he put people on blended salads, which I eat every day. I have a blended salad for lunch today, and juices and nuts. And he had.
When you say a blended salad, are you talking about a green smoothie or something else?
No, something else. I'll tell you what that is in a second.
All right.
And so he had people come into his office, and I started working for him. And there was this young girl, and she had horrible acne. Now, nowadays she would be put on Accutane or antibiotics, God forbid. But she didn't want to do that, and she had pustules all over her face, the poor thing. And I was very naive, and she comes in, and I'm thinking to myself, why doesn't he just put her on antibiotics? Why is she here? So I was in his office taking notes when he would talk to the patient. So I got a really deep education of what his philosophy was and how he treated. And he would have them come back every month. And so the following month she came back and she was like 30% better. And she had lost weight and she started feeling better. And the following month she came back and she was almost 70% better. So in a period of 4 months, all of her pustules in her face started oozing, and she was eliminating other ways. She went through a very deep toxic thing. And then emotionally, all this stuff started happening for her. And I got to witness that. And then he had all these people who the medical profession had either messed up or they didn't want to go, or, I mean, it was a huge education for me. And I became what I call radicalized about the power of natural healthcare. And it is powerful and detoxifying, and how it is a whole body, whole mind approach. It's not just drink this and you're going to fix your body. You're going to need to fix your mind too. So one of the main components of his approach was something called a blended salad, in addition to vegetable juices. That's another topic. But a blended salad has 5 things: tomatoes, red peppers, celery, cucumbers, and lettuce. Now, the higher the quality of the ingredients, the more nutritious and delicious the salad is going to be. So in the winter, the tomatoes are not great. So in the winter, there's a couple months when I just can't eat it because the quality of the tomatoes are so horrible. But you take an equal amount of each one of these 5 ingredients and you put it in your blender or Cuisinart, and you add a couple tablespoons of really delicious organic olive oil and a whole organic squeezed lemon, and then you pulse it. And you can make it chunky or you can make it really smooth. But I like it sort of medium. I pulse it 8 times in my Cuisinart. And what that does is the vegetables are all broken down for you. So it's very easy to digest, and you're getting all these phytonutrients and enzymes from the vegetables in your body to help feed your cells, and it helps make great elimination. So I eat that. Sometimes I eat it for breakfast, sometimes I eat it for lunch. It's the beginning of November here in California. So I'll probably be eating this every day until the middle of November, and then I'll probably stop for a couple of months. It gets too cold out here. I don't like to eat it when it's too cold. I'll go
Too cold in California.
Yeah, I know, like you're 13 degrees. But so you have that beautiful house.
The other day.
One? Oh, one is cold. You have the beautiful house with the beautiful fireplace. And so, yeah, one is cold. Yeah, we get down to 32 and I think that's cold, but I want to move back east. But so that is the blended salad. So my eye-opening education about integrative and natural, it wasn't even integrative, it was natural healthcare, and the limitations of allopathic medicine and drugs was really great. And he also did water fasting in his clinic. And he had a house, this was in Lido Beach, New York, and he would have these rich ladies come and want to water fast with him for 10 days before a wedding or something. It was when you think about it, it was very funny. And they would come and they'd stay there and just drink water and fast. And when he had somebody there, I'd have to spend the night and watch them to make sure they were okay. But nobody was hooked up to an IV, and I had to take their blood pressure twice a day. I mean, it was like the level of monitoring compared to what we would do now is a little bit scary, but that was 1977. So nobody got hurt, but it was, and then part of his whole detoxifying was taking Epsom salt enemas, and that you put
Epsom salt enemas.
This is part of his protocol, which I use in practice. You take 2 tablespoons of Epsom salts and you put it in a glass and you put boiling water in it to dissolve it. And then you add that water to your enema bag. And then you do your normal enema, however you do it. But his philosophy about Epsom salts was that Epsom salts pulls toxins out of your lymph when you're detoxifying. And if you're detoxifying with his protocol or doing a water fast, you want to really pull toxins out of your system every day. And it's not whether you're constipated or not. It's like you need to eliminate the burden of the toxins coming out so that you can continue to flush out your system. And that is part of a detoxifying protocol that I use, and because I learned it from him, and he was an expert. The sad news about him is that he was harassed a lot by the medical profession in New York and had to, the end, sort of go into hiding. But he was a genius of a man that didn't get his due recognition, but he really saved a lot of lives. And his philosophy about detoxifying with water and his whole other protocol is that you need to take the person back to the cellular time when that original injury happened that created the disease. And only then could the cells repair and start over. So he took people, you know, way far back with a lot of weight loss and before they started eating again. And the process of eating after you've been on a water fast or this kind of protocol is as important as how you stopped eating. You can't be on a water fast for 10 days and then just the first day you're back at eating, eat normally. You will make yourself sick. So you have to reverse engineer how you started the fast for 10 days forward to begin to reintroduce food. And that's a very important concept that I don't think enough people really understand.
I need to do a better job of that myself. It's when I start eating, it's like a party. I get to eat again.
Yeah. Well, also when I did all this research into intermittent fasting for my Society for Integrative Oncology presentation, they talk about refeeding. There were some studies about refeeding, and refeeding. A lot of studies were done on mice, but if you don't do refeeding properly, the benefits of intermittent fasting, which are lowering your IGF-1, insulin glucose factor 1, which is a driver of cancer and sugar due to the Warburg effect. If you don't refeed properly, then the benefit of lowering that IGF-1 is lost. And the whole purpose of intermittent fasting is to reduce the sugar component in your body. And let me just give a little bit sidetrack here about what is the Warburg effect, because it's a very important component of approaching cancer, whether it's breast cancer or any type of cancer. Otto Warburg was a scientist in Germany in 1924. He discovered this Warburg effect, and he won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1931. And what the Warburg effect is, it was named after him, is cancer will take a less direct route if it's offered either the choice of having oxygen for energy or sugar for energy. Oxygen is a straighter pathway and gives more ATP. But cancer says, you know what? I don't want the oxygen so much. I want to go over to the sugar. So sugar leads less ATP dramatically. Oxygen will give it 41 units of ATP. Sugar gives it 2, the glucose pathway. But cancer says, I'm choosing sugar. So as part of my protocol with the women that I work with, is we really need to have a very low glycemic index, because sugar is a huge driver of cancer, oncogenesis, metastasis, all of that. And we want to alter the cancer metabolic pathways and the tumor microenvironment by starving the cancer cells of glucose. One of the benefits of using the Warburg effect with intermittent fasting is if you've chosen and you're doing chemotherapy, and you're using intermittent fasting, when the chemotherapy comes into your body, the cancer cells are starving, and they see the chemotherapy, and they've given you, doctors, part of it is giving you steroids, and that's perceived as sugar by the cancer cells, and the cancer cells will take up more of the chemotherapy, and the healthy cells are protected. So that's a very important integrative approach towards preparing for chemotherapy. And if the cancer cells take up more and the healthy cells are protected, you will have less side effects. And that makes a big difference in your recovery.
When you say intermittent fasting, during chemotherapy. I mean, of course it's gonna. I just want to make sure we're being clear about the difference between just a prolonged water fast and
Okay.
you're eating I don't know, for 4 to 10 hours a day, or whatever you might want to call intermittent, what most people call intermittent fasting. But yeah, are you saying that your people are going through chemotherapy and eating every day, or are we talking about two different things here?
Okay, there's lots of different terms that get lumped in together with the term fasting or intermittent fasting. There's caloric restriction, and research has shown that in order to get the biochemical benefits of caloric restriction, you need to restrict your calories by 40 to 50%. So that means not eating, take your plate and take off basically half of what you're supposed to eat. Then there is this Dr. Harvey who decided that you should eat 5 days and fast for 2. But the most research has been done by this Dr. Walter Longo, who's also written a book out of USC. And he has a whole group of colleagues who've done research. And for him, intermittent fasting is reducing your calories and reducing what you eat. And in the realm of chemotherapy, what I say is 2 days before you're supposed to have your infusion, you want to dramatically decrease your calories so that you're eating between 600 to 800 calories a day. And for me, how I do that is now Dr. Walter Longo has created this Prolon fast that you can purchase. And he's also has a new product coming out called ChemEase. But I feel like it is just as easy to do this without doing that. And what I have people do is I have them do bone broth, vegetable juice, which they make, which I give them the recipes for. And then I mentioned Bieler's broth. And we're going about Bieler's broth a long way around. But Bieler's broth is also from the group of, similar to Dr. Curcio, we have Dr. Shelton, we have Dr. Rush, Lust, we have all those original natural healing doctors from the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. There's a lot of their books. They're just filled with natural healing information. Dr. Shelton is a big one. So the Bieler's broth is green beans, zucchini, white cabbage, parsley, celery, leeks, onions. You take a whole bunch of this stuff, you cut it up into big chunks, you put it in a big pot with your filter water, and you just simmer it for a couple of hours. And then you put the entire thing through your blender and you make a big green mush out of it. You do not add salt, you do not add pepper, you just eat it like that. And you drink it. So you're just getting a huge amount of greens, and it's very filling and nurturing. It also makes your body basic as opposed to acidic. And chemotherapy and inflammation make your body acidic, and cancer and inflammation and disease love an acid environment. So when we drink this Bieler's broth, we're influencing our body so it becomes more basic and promotes less inflammation. So this is how I manage intermittent fasting. And so 2 days before you start that, and then this is another thing which I've added in my clinical practice, which I'm sharing with your audience. When you go to chemotherapy, you want to go in with empty intestines. So I have people take a certain product, Integrative Therapeutics laxative formula, or you can do a smooth move tea, but you really want to empty your intestines. And people say, I'm not constipated, I'm fine. And I go, that may be the case. First of all, the majority of Americans don't understand really what it is to go to the bathroom appropriately. Most Americans are constipated. Even if you think you're not, you probably are. But you want to give yourself almost diarrhea before chemotherapy. And why is that? Chemotherapy is a huge shock to your system. So you don't want to auto-intoxicate. And that means if you have fecal material in, you go for chemotherapy, which is a big burden for your toxic load ability in your body. Even if it's a positive thing addressing the tumor, it is also has its consequences. You want to get all of that fecal material that was old out. And then you want to continue to flush out your system so that the toxins created by the chemotherapy do not remain in your body any longer than necessary. And that's part of diminishing the side effects of chemotherapy. So I think we need to get the word out more, because so many women, I mean, they show up for chemotherapy, they've had, you know, bacon and eggs for breakfast. It's like,
Yeah.
You know, and then they wonder why they're throwing up and sick. It's heartbreaking. I mean, it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I'd known for a long time about Walter Longo, and the fasting mimicking diet is another term people can look for his work and what to do there, or just a pure water fast throughout, you know, starting a day before. I hear that a lot. It just don't eat a day before, don't eat the day of, don't eat the day after, that sort of thing.
That's hard. Water fasting is hard for standard Americans.
Yeah, it's not. It's the fasting mimicking diet. I mean, that's why it's a diet. There you eat. It's not as hard for people. But maybe I had heard that about making sure your intestines were empty before, but it's certainly something I'd forgotten that wasn't on the top of my mind. I'm glad you brought that up. I like a product called Oxy Powder by Global Healing Center on that note.
Okay, I'm not familiar. What is that? Tell me.
It is ozonated magnesium.
Oh, cool. That's very cool.
It, so you take optimally, you hydrate the day. You take it at night optimally, and then make sure to have plenty of fluids in your system. And it just gets everything out of there. You can take too much and then have, you know, well, it's not really too much, but
it's fine.
Depends on how explosive you want to be in the bathroom. Yeah.
You know, just look better out than in. It's really important to get it out.
Yeah. But it also, it's due to the ozonation, it's releasing oxygen inside your intestines and actually kind of cleaning them.
I'm going to have to look into that. Thank you for that information. That's cool.
Yeah. This has been about a lot of different things that were not necessarily related to homeopathy, which was...
we can go back to homeopathy. Yeah, let's go back to homeopathy now.
One question I wanted to ask you about is, do you practice, I mean, so I don't even claim to be fully in the know on, I get the gist of what the difference is, but there's classical homeopathy and then there's clinical homeopathy. Would you say you fall into one of those two camps, or is there another thing that I'm not getting there, or what?
There are lots of different types of homeopathy. There is classical homeopathy, in which people are following the Hahnemann method from Dr. Samuel Hahnemann, who discovered homeopathy. And I practiced that way for many years, but the diseases and our society have really changed in the last 200 years. So I think homeopathy has changed following that. So even though that's my foundation, I've studied with a couple different advanced clinical doctors. Lou Klein is a wonderful homeopath from Canada, and I attended and got a certificate from his Homeopathic Master's Clinician course. And he has a wonderful way of viewing a case. And every case, of course, is different. Every person is different. And we look at the person as a whole, and then what's their relationship and how is their dis-ease impacting their relationship to themselves, to their family, to their society, and what are the unique symptoms. And we find a remedy based on that approach. Then there is Jan Scholten, who is a genius of a man from, I think, Holland or the Netherlands or Germany. And he took the periodic table initially, and he turned that into homeopathic remedies. And this was the beginning of what I think is the 21st century's shift for homeopathy. And so it's very easy when you take a case from somebody to figure out if they're a plant remedy, a mineral remedy, an animal remedy, or if they need something called an imponderable remedy. So he began that. He used that system for minerals, for the periodic table, and then he expanded it into plant remedies. So there are thousands of plants, and you can now use that system to find somebody's remedy if they're a plant, if they need a plant substance. And then there's a whole group in India, which I've also studied with, the Bombay group, the Mumbai group, Dr. Rajan Sankaran, Dr. Chaudhary, Sujit. There are lots of homeopaths from India and they see thousands of people a week. They have clinics in India where they'll see thousands of people. And homeopathic remedies in India are very, very big. So sometimes it's hard to know which approach to take, but I always let the person guide me. And the good news is there is acute homeopathy, which we can use when somebody is doing radiation and they have certain burns. And I'm happy to talk about some top remedies for that. And then, but for more constitutional work, it's very hard to generalize because homeopathy is so individual. And then the Indians have taken some of their knowledge and created the Banjari protocol, which I use for women with cancer.
I was going to ask you about that. I hear mixed things on it, but
oh, yeah?
You seem to, well, I guess it's people that just aren't really sure about it or don't really know much about it. But yeah, I guess everyone who has studied it in depth is a fan. I'll say that, yeah.
It's kept a lot of people alive for a long time. As with anything, first of all, my base approach towards cancer is there is no one thing by itself that is going to help you. It's a very serious metabolic disease and it needs a lot of different protocols put all together for you to really address the metabolic imbalances. So I think the Banjari protocol is part of a whole comprehensive protocol of nutrition and maybe IV therapy and targeted supplementation and lifestyle and mindset. It's not one thing.
Oh,
but
that's the name of the game around here.
Yeah, of course. But unfortunately, a lot of people don't realize that. And the trick is when you're doing so many things, how do you still manage to have a life in which it's not only about taking care of your cancer, but being able to have fun and having that self-care become part of who you are and part of your whole family approach too. It's not just you, it's the whole family. But I think the Banjari protocol is a wonderful system. Now, the problem with it is you need to take your remedies a lot, like every 15 minutes. And so you can set a timer and it goes off and in 15 minutes you have to take a remedy. But it's, a lot of women don't like that. It's too much of an intrusion. You have to do something every 15 minutes but you go through cycles with it. So I work a lot with mindset and encouraging women to really take this on inside of themselves as opposed to me telling them and then feeling victim or forced to do something. And I think it takes a while to build the protocol. You can't have somebody doing 7 new things in a week. I mean, it could take several months. And then where do we put in the Banjari protocol at that? So you have to figure this all out.
Yeah, it's building, and then that's not even counting any vitamins or other supplements or all that stuff. Yeah. I'd love to hear maybe just let you go for a few minutes on how more on how you use homeopathy to
Sure.
Mitigate or prevent treatment-related side effects. That'd be
Sure.
great.
Well, let me talk about a constitutional remedy for breast cancer because I think that's really important. And the name of that remedy is homeopathic carcinosin. And it was taken from a breast tumor. And how the remedy was proven, when remedies are made in homeopathy, they're taken and they go through very serious proving protocols where the remedy is given blinded to a group of people, and each group has its own head person, and the people who are given the remedy are instructed very, very clearly to report mental, emotional, physical symptoms and dreams. And in extreme detail, for example, I had a right twitch over my eye. I mean, it's like very minute detail. And then they meet with their head prover, and then the head provers are collating all of these symptoms, and then they meet with the head of the study, And all of these symptoms are collated and put together. And that's how you come up with the repertory of what a certain remedy is. And it takes a long time. So what they discovered about homeopathic carcinosin or breast cancer remedy is that, and this is so true in all of the women that I see, and I use it not just for women with breast cancer, but there's this inner drive and inner push to do, run, accomplish. And when you think about what is breast cancer or what are cancer cells are normal cells that have decided to stop paying attention to the rules of driving along the freeway, for example. Because when you're driving, you know that all the cars are going to stop at the stop signs and the stop lights, and they're going to merge. And that's how we all behave when we're on the freeway or on the city streets or the side streets. But cancer cells have decided, I'm not paying attention to any of these stop signs, the merging, the stoplights. Not only am I going to just keep moving forward, but I'm going to get all the cars around me to stop paying attention to the rules too. That's a really good example or metaphor of what happens with cancer. So when you think about what this driving energy is, it's reflected in the remedy. Accomplish, rush. I can't stop doing stuff. I have lists in my head. I can't sleep. I'm always feeling like I haven't done enough. That is one of the main symptoms of the homeopathic remedy carcinosin. And it mimics the remedy of what breast cancer is. So they're very connected energetically. So I give that remedy to women who have breast cancer, and I give it at a pretty high potency. But then there is acute homeopathy, which is what we're talking about, which has been pretty miraculous for women undergoing, let's start with radiation.
Before we get into that, I just want to, so when I have a stomach ache, or I can't remember the last time I had a stomach ache, actually.
Good.
That's that example, but I'm trying to think of a symptom I've had in a while. Actually, I've had a sore throat recently, and I went to Whole Foods and I got myself their, I forget what it was. I think they put a bunch of different, I forget what the brand is, but they put a bunch of different homeopathic remedies together that all might help with this kind of sore throat or that kind of sore throat or whatever. It's probably, probably not the best way to go about it. But at the end of the day, what I'm trying to get at is I can go to Whole Foods with a symptom and find whatever homeopathic remedy that matches that symptom is at Whole Foods and buy that thing. And it usually works. It's crazy. That's how we actually got into actually, I don't know, just appreciating homeopathy as a discipline is that stuff will actually knock some stuff out, as crazy as it is to think that that there's no actual substance in the remedy. It's just the energy of it. That said, I have not seen carcinosin at Whole Foods.
No, you're not going to find carcinosin at Whole Foods.
Yeah, where is that a provider, doctor available only type of deal, or can a just common man get their hands on it somewhere, or where do you find that sort of?
Because carcinosin is a miasmatic remedy, there are homeopathic pharmacies that sell this, and their laws differ by state. So you can Google homeopathic pharmacies and you can find some of them, and some of them will send you that remedy, and some of them say you need to get it from a practitioner.
Right.
So yes, you're right. And that's a good differentiation. There are thousands of remedies, and Whole Foods has maybe 50 of them, which are the top acute remedies. Yeah. But for a lot of more constitutional remedies, you'll need to see a homeopath. And there are homeopaths who advertise in the National Center for Homeopathic, in the NCH directory, and you can Google that. I don't advertise in there, and you can just Google homeopathic doctor, homeopathic practitioner with your city and state and see what comes up. And if anybody wants to find a homeopath and can't, you're more than welcome to contact me, and I will try to find one for you locally. And I also work remotely. It's very easy to work remotely as a homeopath. So
that's what I was going to ask. And if you're working remotely with someone, are you able to, like out of state, are you able to send them the
yes,
remedies? Okay, great.
yeah, yeah, because that homeopathy is not medicine. It's homeopathy. If you're giving somebody a non-toxic, non-existent product. So yes, I send out of state.
That's awesome. We keep a running list of naturopathic doctors or integrative, different cancer coaches, things like that. Anybody that does remote consultations that we approve of, I guess you could say, on our website, the Stern Method, and we'll put you up there. It's really
Great,
good to know.
wonderful. So
Anyway, I cut you off.
that's okay. And we're having a great conversation. Back to the acute use of homeopathic remedies, which is what you found when you had your sore throat. Now, let's just take sore throat. All sore throats for a homeopath are not the same, because one of the things, somebody comes in, you have a sore throat. Oh, okay. What kind of pain is it? Sharp, dull, aching? Is it better if you drink hot liquid? Is it better if you drink cold liquid? Is it on the right side or the left side? Does it feel like you have sharp, sticking things in your throat? It's not just the diagnosis of sore throat. It's all these weird, unusual symptoms that accompany an illness. So it's not the name of the illness that's important for homeopath. It's the symptoms that a person presents emotionally, physically, spiritually, on all levels. What makes it better? What makes it worse? I have a sore throat and all I can do is cry because I'm thinking about something that was upsetting. I mean, stuff comes up emotionally. It's not just the sore throat. So there are these symptoms that we take, the picture of the disease or the illness, and that's how we recommend prescribe a remedy. Now, for acute care, which is what we were talking about with your sore throat, or for women who are going through radiation, I've seen horrible burns from radiation therapy. And let's just start out by saying that radiation is cumulative. So you start out and you're fine, and then by the time of your 35th or 40th cycle, your skin is red, inflamed, and you have severe radiation burns. So what I want to do as somebody who helps women through this is also with radiation, you're very limited because you don't want to give too many antioxidants, because radiation creates a huge amount of oxidative stress and that builds up in your system. But if you give antioxidants, you can interfere with the radiation. So what can we do? Drink miso soup. Drink miso soup, 2 cups before your radiation appointment and 2 cups after. Go into radiation with having fasted. Make sure your intestines are empty. When you're finished with radiation, make yourself a green smoothie or a green juice, because that is filled with antioxidants that are natural, but I'm not giving you pills or supplements like Anато-E. Tocotrienols are really excellent for decreasing radiation oxidative stress, but we're not doing that while you're on radiation. We're just using food as medicine. And acupuncture is great, and now we have homeopathy. So and also you can help protect your gut. There's no issues with doing pre and probiotics. Total Gut Protocol from Microbiome Labs is excellent for this, and I have all my women that I'm working with on that.
Microbiome Labs, they're the ones that make the Megaspore products?
Megaspore products, and they have a prebiotic and a probiotic and a megamucosa. And the prebiotic and the megamucosa are powders, and they go into your smoothie. So you can protect your gut. You can.
Do you recommend that on chemotherapy as well? When people,
yes.
Okay, just the spore aspect of it always made me a little nervous.
Oh, really? Why is that?
I don't know. Just, I mean, in general, it drives me crazy when oncologists scare people away from doing anything for their gut, probiotics and that sort of thing. But I don't know. I guess if I'm thinking on the safe side, yeah, if there is such a thing as like the safe side, or if it matters at all, just something about just, what a spore is, how it forms into more and more things, which is a good thing if you're trying to repopulate your gut. But I don't know, if your counts are low and it's super like 0, and you did have maybe a leaky gut or something like that, and something did get into your bloodstream, then just, I don't know, maybe it's just the word spore that scares me at the end of the day. But.
Okay. Well, they've done published research on the efficacy of this product. And I think protecting your gut is one of the best things you can do to keep your counts from going low.
This is true. Yeah.
So I can't imagine. And my understanding of the spore is that the product is not released higher up, it's released lower down. So if you, so that really, it's released where it's needed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but having low counts, we want to prevent women from having low counts. And we want to get them built up before and during their infusions so that they're not anemic and their counts are, and I get calls from oncologists all the time saying the women who see you, their blood work is by far better than anybody else. So I don't think you have to have low counts when you're going through chemo, but you have to also, you have to start early and you have to be willing to do a lot of work. It's not, you know, it's not like we're brought up in American society. And if you watch standard television, you have a problem and you take a pill and you're all better. And it's, you know, I hope that cancer is a wake-up call for everyone or any serious illness, that it's going to take more than a pill or chemotherapy or radiation or surgery or whatever your choice is to recover from your cancer. It's a full on out protocol, all hands on deck. Notice I'm not using the word war because we're not at war with our own body. But
our body, yeah. I derailed you off radiation again.
It's okay. So I'm an intuitive too. I love these little conversations are the conversations. So here we are, you go to radiation, you end up as it goes along and you start having burning skin. What can you do? Once again, as a homeopath, what are your symptoms? It's burning. Okay, it's burning. Is it stinging? Do you feel like you're getting sharp pains of a fork through your breast? Is it just burning? Is it better with hot water? I know that's a weird symptom because people think I'm burning, I'm always going to want to put ice on it, but actually there are indications and sometimes it is better with hot. That's a different remedy than if it's better with cold. So the main remedy for burns homeopathically is the homeopathic remedy Cantharis, C-A-N-T-H-A-R-I-S, and you will find that at Whole Foods. And you can find it in the 6C or the 30C potency, and you can get a 30C, and you can take 1 or 3 pellets several times a day. Now, here's the thing about homeopathic remedies. When you take them, it's like taking a little pebble and throwing a pond in the pond. You get the ripple effect. You don't need to take it 5 times a day for it to work. Unlike supplements or drugs, which you need to take all the time for them to work. When you take a homeopathic remedy, it is working even if you're not taking it all the time. When you're taking it acutely, you take it and you see if your symptoms subside, and then you don't take it again until the symptoms, the volume on the symptoms start to come back. So you take the remedy Cantharis, some of that burning goes away, even if it's only by 50%, that's an improvement. And then a couple hours later, you notice, oh, you know, the pain's coming back. So you take another dose. And then you listen to your body and you follow those symptoms about how it's subsiding, and then you take a remedy and it goes away and then it comes back. Now, you can start out with using the remedy Cantharis, but then you notice the symptoms change. All of a sudden, the burning is a little different and you're feeling like, gee, I want to put hot water on this to make it feel better. So it's not uncommon when you're doing acute homeopathy to go through several different remedies at a time to treat the symptom. So you can start out with Cantharis, and then maybe you might need to go to the homeopathic remedy Restox, which is you have burning, but it's also made from poison ivy. It's itching or burning, and it's better with heat. Or don't even mention to me heat, I need to put ice cold on it. That's the homeopathic remedy Apis. And all these remedies you can find at Whole Foods. Apis is made from bee stings. So it'll be red and swollen, and it's better with cold. That's homeopathic Apis, like you got stung by a bee. Yeah. So those are some of the remedies. And then there's one more main remedy, which is homeopathic belladonna. And
Yep.
that is, the skin is just throbbing, red, throbbing, and your whole being is in an agitated state. And that is homeopathic belladonna. And all of these remedies are easily found at Whole Foods. But you can buy, Dana Ullman is a local homeopath here. He's done a lot for homeopathy in the state of California, and he has a great book on acute homeopathic remedies. And you can find that easily on Amazon or any place else.
Is there an online source of homeopathic remedies that you would point people to, that you would prefer above Whole Foods?
You know, I either use one of the, the weird remedies that I use, I order from Europe sometimes, or there's specific remedy pharmacies in the US, but I don't know of any place that takes from normal people. I can look into that and let you know, but
Yeah.
I'll do some research about that.
No worries. Did you want to cover chemo?
Yeah, and
Side effects?
Side effects from chemo and homeopathy? Sure. Okay, so
is there any protective, like I guess it's kind of two sides of the same coin, but you know, anything you would do to protect your cells homeopathically versus mitigating the side effects?
I think if you do the Bonjari protocol, I know that I have a whole protective homeopathic protocol for radiation with the Bonjari protocol. And there is that same approach for chemotherapy, but it's very individualized. And so there isn't some, and the remedies for radiation are very weird. You will have to get them. And I don't even know if you can get them from, if you're not a homeopathic practitioner, from a regular pharmacy. So, yeah. But there are, it's not the type of homeopathy that I do, but there are combination homeopathic detox remedies that I think are really valid. It's just not what I do. There's BioResource, which has homeopathic combinations, and there are these companies in Germany that make these weird combinations, but it's not the way that I practice homeopathy.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, back to the acute side effects then.
From chemo.
Yeah.
So I think the main thing is, of course, we want to go into chemo prepared with having changed your diet, intermittent fasting, water fast, or the Bieler's juice, bone broth, whatever it is, empty your intestines, show up to chemotherapy. You want to be having some very strong mint, ginger tea that will decrease the nausea. And then what happens? So you get nauseous. There's a couple different great remedies for homeopathic nausea and throwing up. The main one I would say is homeopathic ipecac. You can find that at Whole Foods. There is the remedy called homeopathic phosphorus, where anytime you have anything put in your stomach, like water or toast, or God forbid you should be eating toast, but anything like that, anytime you have anything put in your stomach, you throw up. That's an indication for homeopathic phosphorus. Then there's homeopathic bryonia, where I'm fine as long as I don't move. But if I move, I get nauseous and I throw up. That is homeopathic bryonia. Then there's homeopathic pulsatilla, which you wouldn't necessarily think of as a remedy for nausea, but I've given this. The woman is lying very still. The window is open. She has to have fresh air. She can't stand a stuffy room. And she is weepy and cryy and wants consolation and very nauseated. So there's a lot of symptoms going on there, and it's not only about nausea. But if you give homeopathic pulsatilla in an instance like that, all of those symptoms will get better. She'll stop weeping so much, not that there's anything the matter with crying, but she'll feel better, and the nausea will diminish. So it's not just the nausea that we look at acutely. We also take into consideration some of these other concomitant or symptoms that happen at the same time.
Very good. I'm trying to think of anything for neuropathy and that sort of thing?
Oh, well, neuropathy from the functional medicine standpoint is alpha lipoic acid, vitamin B6, and before radiation, which can also cause neuropathy, ideally you would go for high potency, some IV vitamin C before radiation for that. Neuropathy from chemotherapy, also alpha lipoic acid, vitamin B6. But homeopathically, homeopathic hypericum is a remedy for nerve pain. And I think also herbally, herbal tincture of hypericum, a few drops in hot water several times a day would be beneficial.
Very good. Don't suppose you can, don't suppose there's anything homeopathically to keep people's hair on.
No.
But
no, you know, maybe Dr. Weber might know with the laser therapy, right?
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of other common chemo. So like sores, any like
mouth sores?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, here's the deal with mouth sores. First of all, the healthier your intestines are, the better you will have a response to chemotherapy and the less you will have mouth sores. So the homeopathic remedy borax, B-O-R-A-X, is one of the indications for mouth sore. It's a remedy for mouth sores. I protect people's gut. I help them with intermittent fasting when they show up. I mean, it's like when you go in for chemotherapy, it's sort of like you're climbing Mount Everest or doing some version of that. It's a very big deal. But if you prepare, you prepare for it, you have the right mindset, you know you're supported, you've done all of your work, and you go in and you have a lot of visualization, and then you're an empowered woman through chemotherapy. And then you get much less side effects. But also the herbal combination by my mentor, Donnie Yance, his formula company is called Natura Products, Natura. You can find this on the internet. His Digest Mend, it's a powder, and you put some in some water and you swish it around in your mouth, and then you swallow it. And you take it prophylactically also. I've had very few mouth sores in my practice, so it's Digest Mend by Natura, and you can find that on the internet, and homeopathic borax, and preparing by taking care of your gut.
Very good. Oh, I just wanted to note that back to the nausea portion, the Ipecac remedy you mentioned. Ipecac would be something to, if you were to take the physical substance, that would be to induce vomiting, right?
Yes, that's correct. That's one of the tenets of homeopathy is like treats like.
Yeah.
So Ipecac is a drug which is used in the emergency room to make people throw up, but homeopathically, like treats like, it's used to help people in homeopathic dilution preparation not have nausea. It's also a remedy that I use a lot for women in pregnancy.
Yeah.
Nausea with pregnancy, yes, but you're past that phase right now.
Yeah, she's doing good. She's doing good. Last but not least, you had something about a healing smoothie in your notes. Did we cover that with the Bieler broth, or is that something different?
No, healing smoothie is different. The healing smoothie it's either a whey powder, a pea isolate protein powder, or a keto powder, or a collagen powder. It's whatever powder you use. And I think that whey, if you have to find it from the right company, but whey has a lot of immunoglobulins. It's very anti-inflammatory. Or pea isolate protein powder is also very good. So it really depends on what type of program you're on. If you're on keto, a collagen, or a keto powder is excellent also, but make sure that you know the company that you're buying your products for. And I don't want to mention any names because we're not doing that, but some companies make their
We're not brand diverse here.
Okay.
It's the more knowledge, the better in terms of
that's
specific
fine.
What to get and what not to get.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
for sure.
So for the whey, I would either use my Donnie Yance Natura. He makes a phenomenal whey product. Designs for Health has a great whey product. Zymogen has a great whey product. And those are the companies I would trust for whey. For pea isolate protein, Zymogen, Designs for Health, Metagenics has some great products. And the reason I like Zymogen products is their products are made with monk fruit as opposed to stevia.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. And they also make their products to pharmaceutical quality control in their companies. So I really absolutely trust those companies. Apex, by the way, and Biotics are also two other really good brands that I think are excellent. Biotics has some great powders. So we put in either water or organic coconut water or unsweetened almond or nut milk as you put that into your blender. And preferably, I would prefer if people can have a glass blender, the old-fashioned kind as opposed to plastic, but whatever. So
just don't do your well, yeah, bulletproof coffee wouldn't be the best thing for. I don't drink coffee at all anymore, but it drives me crazy when I see people pouring hot liquid into a plastic blender.
No, don't get me started. Or with the plastic, if it's a paper bottom and then they have those horrible plastic tops on it where the liquid goes up to the top, the hot liquid, and all those BPAs and BSAs are now getting into the coffee. So we're on that. But so I use an old-fashioned glass blender with the liquid. Then you put in 1 or 2 scoops of the powder. Now, if you need to gain weight, you want to do 2 scoops. Or if you're protein deficient, you want to do 2, because that can be between 11 and 22 grams of protein. What else goes in your healing smoothie? Designs for Health makes great quercetin ascorbate. Quercetin ascorbate is quercetin. It's a powder. It's one of the things, it gets the cancer cells back in line. It puts them, stop not paying attention to the rules, let's get with it. Then I use D-ribose. D-ribose also by Designs for Health. It's a powder. Biotics also makes D-ribose, and I think Zymogen also makes D-ribose. So I use 2 teaspoons of quercetin. That's a lot, but you need this. You need to really get those cancer cells back in line. 2 heaping teaspoons of D-ribose. Then I put in there half an avocado, a tablespoon each of organic dark flaxseed and chia seeds. When you buy your dark flax seeds, they have more lignans in them. You want to put them in a glass jar and keep them in the refrigerator. And then I use half a cup of berries for the antioxidants. And you can either use some ice if you want or not ice, and you blend it. Now, that can be a meal replacement or it can be a shake that you eat in between meals. If you need to gain weight, you can put an egg yolk in there for lecithin. You can put a couple tablespoons of almond butter or cashew butter. No peanuts, people. Peanuts are filled with aflatoxin. Nobody wants to be eating peanuts. Almond, walnut, cashew, Brazil nuts are excellent nuts. And then you can also put in some tahini and a couple tablespoons of molasses if you want. So you can calorie load this if you need to gain weight. Otherwise, you can leave all those products out. But if you drink that every day, and then you can put some greens powder in it, or you can put a handful of chard or kale, not so much spinach because of the oxalates in spinach, unfortunately. This is separate from vegetable juice, but if you drink the healing smoothie every day, you are getting a huge amount of nutrients for your cells, and you are really providing the baseline messaging for the mitochondria of your cells to help them get back in line, to decrease angiogenesis and to decrease the spread of oncogenesis. And it's part of a whole comprehensive protocol that we all need to do. If you're working or having cancer, it's not a one thing, it's a whole protocol.
That's awesome. That's really great. I will make the healing smoothie for.
Well, I'm sure you have your own version of it, right? It's you.
Well, I mean, I try to stay away from recipes as much as I know, like I want this, and that into me or my kid or whatever. And so I don't know. So we're really big into smoothie bowls right now, like, blending up some coconut milk, maybe a frozen banana, and putting a bunch of superfood powders in there. It's kind of like an acai bowl on steroids, if you want to call it that.
That's great for the kids, and the coconut is very healthy, and the banana is great. But for people with cancer, banana is too high in glycemic index. So you don't want to be eating bananas. So that's why I say berries in the healing smoothie. But for the children, it's delicious. That's perfect. And if you let this healing smoothie sit. If you don't drink it right when you make it, it will turn into pudding and you will have to eat it with a spoon. Just know that. I don't mind. So I have half in the morning and I can't finish it all. So I bring it to the office and I have the other half later in the day and I eat it with a spoon, sort of like a dessert. I think it's a delicious thing, and I think it is really important for everyone's health.
Very good. Carol Lourie, this has been really great. Really glad it worked out. Any final thoughts for anyone going through cancer, or anything you wanted to point out that I didn't ask you about, that sort of thing?
I think we covered a lot, and I just want to say that we didn't talk about the spiritual component or the emotional component of this illness, no matter what type of cancer you have. I think that there is a very intense spiritual, emotional component to this disease. And in my clinical practice, in my online program, I address that. And I think for every person with any serious illness, it's really important to address that. However, whatever you choose, through religion or spirituality or meditation or therapy, or just working with someone like myself, if we don't handle the emotional component of illness, it's very hard to fully recover. And I believe that people can fully recover from serious disease. And that's my goal in my clinical practice and in my online program. It is possible to fully recover. Ryan knows that with his child. And if one person does it, we can all aim for that. Now, sometimes, unfortunately, that isn't the case. And we don't know what our path or karma is individually, but we can all do our best all the time.
Very good. And can agree more with all that. I really appreciate it. Yeah, it's a big part, and you try to do the best you can with making a topical interview versus everything you could possibly want to know about cancer, because then you can't fit it all in. But I'm glad you brought it up, because it's a really big deal, and I hope people do take it seriously.
I think they do.
Talk about your online program, and then anywhere else you'd like to direct folks in terms of social media, your website, how to get in touch with you, all that good stuff.
So I have taken a lot of the knowledge I have from my over 35 years in clinical practice, and I've created this online program for women with breast cancer called The Path of Breast Cancer, thepathofbreastcancer.com. And there are 3 modules which follow you through your breast cancer journey: treatment, recovery, and preventing recurrence. And you can find out all about that through my website. And if you want to reach me personally, support at thepathofbreastcancer.com it's my email, and I'm pretty good about responding to everyone.
Very good. We'll link to the course and your website and all that good stuff in the show notes, which will be for this, thesternmethod.com/Carol-Lourie. Very good. Very good, Carol. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Blessings to everyone. Lovely to be here.
There you go. Really hope you got a thing or two you can use out of that interview with Dr. Carol Lourie. As always, links to all the resources mentioned, along with the bullet points of the interview, can be found on our site, thesternmethod.com/Carol-Lourie, Lourie. While you're there, you can check out the What We Use section for just that. Everything we use, from our favorite supplements to non-toxic living stuff to healing gear and devices and whatnot, and a whole lot more. And when you use the links on our site, that helps us keep the lights on and keep bringing you this information rather than doing something else I care much less about. So please keep that in mind. Like I said in the intro, I thought this turned out to be a very good interview, covering a whole lot more ground than I would have expected. I would have liked to geek out on the nitty-gritty of homeopathy as it applies to cancer with Carol a little more. But then again, as Carol mentioned, true homeopathy is very hard to generalize in an interview format like this, so it's specific to the person and their symptoms. And I got this point hammered in for me in a big way recently by Carol herself in an entirely different context. This interview was recorded shortly before the birth of our new son, Rocky, and a subsequent highly life-threatening septic group A strep infection in my wife, Teddy. Dr. Lourie, bless her heart, overnighted a ton of homeopathic remedies I'd never even heard of before to the hospital and was then texting with me to determine the most appropriate one to give her at that time. And her questions were not as simple as what type of infection it was. They were things like, is she thirsty? Does she have cramps? Hot or cold? What is her emotional state? Anxious, depressed, other unusual thoughts? So that's where you have to sort of draw the line between stuff you can talk about generally on a podcast and what you really just need to work with someone who knows a whole lot about homeopathy, such as Dr. Lourie, to get the biggest benefit. Oh, but one thing, speaking of generalizations in homeopathy and coronavirus, I did stock up on the boron oscillococcinum formula, which I have no idea if I'm pronouncing correctly. It's indicated for shortening the duration of flu-like symptoms. I used it once, like I felt like I was getting the flu, and it went away before it even really set in. With that, I'll let you get back to your early spring vacation or homeschooling or stocking up on your doomsday supplies, but whatever it is, remember to do it with a smile and don't stress. And of course, if you are going through cancer as well, just keep going. I'm Ryan Sternagel of the Stern Method. You've been listening to the Anti-Cancer Revolution. God bless and Godspeed.